Today's camera was lent to me by a neighbour. She lent it to me on the basis that it was faulty and she wanted to know if it was worth getting it fixed. It is the 2006 Nikon D40. Apparently it won't autofocus. So my mission is to see what's wrong with it and see if it can be fixable and tell her what the camera's worth. Well, I can do that straight away. If the camera is fully functional, it is sadly only worth about £30 to £40 today. So would it be worth getting it fixed? Very, very doubtful, but it kind of depends on what's wrong with it. So I'm going to go through a little fault finding journey on this camera to see if I can work out what the problem is and whether or not it's worth fixing it. So if you're unfamiliar with this camera, as I said, it's from about 2006 and it is a 6.1 megapixel camera. So this is the Nikon D40. It has a sister, the D40X, and if you find one of those around, that has a 10 megapixel camera. So it's quite a big advance on this in terms of megapixels. In terms of functionality, it's the same, and that's not really what I'm concerned with today. The first thing I had to do with this camera was find a charger for it and charge up the battery. That seemed to work fine. And the second thing that's maybe a problem with this sort of camera is that the really large SD cards that we use today won't work on all older cameras. I had a bit of a check, and apparently the maximum SD card that you can put into this camera is 32 gigabytes. Now 32 gigabytes isn't a problem. I've put a 4 gigabyte card in, and that 4 gigabyte card will give me, well, quite a few images at 6.1 megabytes. The next thing I want to try is to reset the camera. Now, if you look on the top of the camera, you'll see there is a green dot there. There's also a green dot here on the back of the camera. If I depress the button above the green dot here, and the button, turn it on, that'll help, and the button next to the green dot here, the screen blanks off, then blanks on again, and now I've reset the camera to its factory settings. I tried that, didn't work. Okay, let's do something more radical. Under this little hatch here, there is a tiny little recessed button here, which I'm going to point at with my scalpel. If you depress that, then that also acts as a more assertive factory reset. No, it didn't work. So playing around with the camera, I found that it would focus if I put it in manual, but it would only fire when the object was in focus. This means that the autofocus system must still be working in some way, because it only focuses, it only fires at the point of maximum contrast. So I was somewhat intrigued, and then further playing around with it, I discovered that if I press the back focus button on here, everything worked fine. Everything worked as it should do, except that the camera isn't focusing on the shutter release, it's focusing on the back button release, and then it all became clear. Having figured that out, it's actually really quite straightforward. I want to press the menu button. At the moment it's on the spanner. I need to press left, if that's left, then up, and then back onto the reset button. And as soon as I press the reset button, do I want to reset the camera? Yes, I do. And now it works perfectly. How cool is that? So again, as so often is the case, the machine is complicated, and sometimes the complication of the machine gets in the way of the user being able to use the machine. This is marketed as a prosumer camera. That's to say that it's halfway between a professional camera and a consumer camera. This particular one, I think the menu should have been a little better hidden. That said, we've now got it working. We've now got a perfectly working 18-year-old £30 worth of Nikon camera.